Without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you our guest. His name is Marty Dupuis, and he is the CFO and co-founder of MMI. And he brings a wealth of knowledge in business, strategy, career development, and leadership. His expertise is further enriched by his roles as a published author and a college professor, where he teaches subjects from leadership and management to organizational behavior. He is known for his sharp analytical skills and practical teaching approach. And I know that some of his students are going to be joining us today. So a little shout out to you guys. Thanks for coming and supporting your professor. I know it means a lot to him. Marty is dedicated to helping professionals and students alike achieve their career aspirations. So without further ado, I would love if Marty, you could turn on your camera and we could get started. Hello there.
Hi, Emma. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks.
Nice. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This is your webinar debut. I know that you've been a loyal fan of all of the other webinars we've put on. So finally, we get to have you in front of the camera, which is very exciting. So welcome.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad for the opportunity. I mean, I'm happy to be able to share some things that I've learned during my career, because it's for me, I do this when I'm teaching, and it's an intrinsic motivation for me to share what I can to help others, even if it's just one person, right?
Perfect. No, I 100% agree. So you're the perfect person to share career mindset and career development. So no one better than you to do this. So I know I gave a little bit of an introduction there, but I'd love if you could introduce yourself, share anything that you would like us to know, and maybe talk a little bit about your career journey.
Okay. So I spent over 3 decades working for the Nielsen Company, which is the world's largest market research firm, mainly known for the Nielsen television ratings. And what's interesting is some people, when they found out I worked that long for one company, they say, well, how could you do that? Is that not boring? But the thing for me is that, sure, I was with the same company, but I kept moving into different kinds of roles. And I also moved into different kinds of departments. So I kind of reinvented myself a few times, got outside my comfort zone. And the nice thing with that was that I actually traveled quite a bit. I was blessed to travel to about 29 cities in 13 countries during my career. I also had various management roles. I managed people in about 14 different countries. And then, because Nielsen's a global business, I got to work with people in about 30 different countries over the years. So I was never bored. I enjoyed the journey. And then following that, about 5 years ago, I started teaching at Fanshawe College here in London. And then 2 years ago, I also started teaching at Conestoga College out in Kitchener. And what I'm enjoying about that is that I'm able to share what I've learned during my career, which really helped me with my students, to kind of give them some of the things that, oh, I wish I knew that early in my life, right? It also helps them, helps the course content become more relevant to them when I can give them actual experiences. And the thing that I'm really happy about too, though, is that all of my courses, all my students are all international students. So I still have that opportunity, even though I'm teaching here in Canada, to still be working with and meeting with people from all around the world, like I did at Nielsen. So I really enjoy that.
Nice. Okay. So obviously, you've had the opportunity to put your hands in a lot of different things, and you have a wealth of knowledge that you can share. And I know that your students are very grateful for that. And I know everyone on this webinar session will be grateful for that as well, just to be able to share your experiences and, what you've learned during your career. So today, we're going to be talking about right to left thinking. And I know that that is something that you know a great deal about, and it's something that you've used professionally and personally throughout your career. So I would love if you could explain, just in general terms, what right to left thinking is, just for everyone in the room who might not be familiar with this mindset.
Okay. So in simple terms, right to left thinking means that you start thinking where you need to end and then work backwards and end up where you need to begin. Okay. On the right side is always the future. Now that future could be 3 months from now, it could be a year from now, or it could be 5 years from now, right? It can always differ. And maybe to share a sports story so that people can help remember this, is that in ice hockey, the greatest player in the history of the game was Wayne Gretzky. And he tells his story of something his father told him at a very, very young age, which really helped him. When young kids are playing hockey, everybody's chasing, there's 10 kids on the ice and there's one puck, right? And typically all the kids are chasing the puck. And Walter Gretzky said to Wayne, he says, don't go to where the puck is, go to where the puck's going. So that's the future, like where the puck's going to go in the future, right? So instead of chasing all these other kids over here on the left where the puck is, go to the right where the puck's going to go. And that really helped him. And that's an analogy that actually one of the CEOs at Nielsen used to quote. And he quoted it in terms of looking at the industry. So the market research industry and technology, where's that puck going to be 5 years from now? Okay, so thinking about where's the industry. And so for people here, when you're working in an industry, and it doesn't matter what industry you're working in, where's it going to be 5 years from now? And then in understanding where it might be, that's when you start working backwards in creating your long-term strategic planning, right back, and you plan back to today. So, what do we have to do over the next 5 years to get where the puck's going to be 5 years from now?
Okay. I love that, because I think when you are starting like a big project, right, you probably get overwhelmed. I know personally I get really overwhelmed if you're saying I need to end up at this goal, this end goal, but I have absolutely no idea how I'm supposed to get there. I just know that I need to end up there, and then you can work backwards with the strategy that you have in place. So I love that. Okay, so I'm curious, right? Obviously, this is something that you have used in your career, and you're very successful, and you've done a lot of great things throughout your career. So I would love to know how you have personally used right to left thinking in your career. Maybe there's a story in particular that you can think of that really shows the benefit that you had by using this mindset.
Okay. Well, I've used right to left thinking in different ways, and I think we can talk about them a little bit more individually. But I've used it in trying to figure out, well, where do I want to go in my career, right? For down the road, looking down the road, and things like that. I've also used right to left in project planning, as you say. Oh well, we've got this big project. What are we going to do? And sometimes with my clients, I'd find out, well, they need something delivered, and they need it delivered by this date, and it's an immovable date, right? So when I'm planning it out, I say, well, here's this date that you need it by, and then I start working backwards. Okay, and saying, okay, well, if you need to launch it by this date, we need to train on the day before. We need software installation the day before. The trainers need a week before their training to have access to the information and do it that way, right? I've also used right to left thinking in terms of designing some things on the job. So there's different ways of applying it in your career, and you apply it over and over and over again. It's not, and this is what I like, and this is what I try and teach my students a lot about the soft skills and things like that. That I say you can use this in any job, in any company, in any industry, and it's never going to go out of fashion, right?
Right. Yeah, I'm thinking I know that we have a lot of marketing, social media people in this room. Personally, I am that as well. So everything you're saying, I'm relating it back to marketing. And it's the same thing when you're starting off with a, social media strategy or something, right? It's about working backwards and making sure that you have a plan in place. But yeah, okay. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Sometimes with the project planning, when the client gives you an immovable date and you start working everything backwards, you find out, oh, we needed to start 2 weeks ago. So then that's when
Yeah.
you start to figure out, well, do I need to add resource, or are there some things that I can do concurrently instead of consecutively, right? But it does happen.
Yeah. No, I definitely can see that happening and really stressful. So if you can use right to left thinking to kind of minimize any upset clients, right? You're able
Hmm.
to provide what you say you're going to provide on time because you're using this, then why not have that in your toolbox and utilize that?
Yeah.
Um, okay, so do you have an example of a career move that you would not have made without the help of right to left thinking?
Um, okay. So this was I don't know, maybe at least halfway through my career. For the most part, I had worked internally at Nielsen. And at this point in time, I was managing a small department, and I'd built in some efficiencies, and it was pretty constrained as to what we really needed to do, and everything was moving fine and whatnot. And I thought, if I want to have more opportunities available to me, right, I've got to broaden my experience. I've got to add some skills, because there was lots of other places to work at Nielsen, externally. I hadn't really done externally. So a job opportunity popped up internally, and it was to use a proprietary software to build category management reports for retailers across Canada. And I looked at that, and I wasn't fully qualified for it, but I thought, well, this is a software that Nielsen's starting to use, and it was going to start to grow globally. So I'd like to have knowledge on how to use that. And then it was going to be a client-facing role, and I didn't have client-facing experience yet. So I thought, what the heck, I'll go for it. So I went to the interview, and I think the conversation within the interview is actually something good to share in an interview webinar, maybe in season 3 or whatever. But I did get the job. And after a while, I started using the software in a way that was surprising even the people who were the developers of the software. Then I started to get on some big projects. And then within the department, we suddenly created a web application for this, right? And so then I started learning how to do things on the web. Then I got on a project with some Nielsen folks over in Europe to build some category management suites for them over there. And then I think around year 6 or whatever, there was an opportunity for someone who had client-facing experience, web experience, and the proprietary software experience. And I went after that, and that was a 3-year expat assignment over in Europe. And so I got that. And so the company moved the family and all our household furnishings to Oxford, England for 3 years. And then I got to work with clients across Europe. I got later on moved into a management role there. And then I also got a couple of trips to India to work with Tata Consultancy, who's an outsourcing partner with Nielsen. But that never would have happened unless I said, you know what, I want to just broaden my experiences and go after something that maybe is a little bit outside my comfort zone.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm glad that you brought up a situation where you went for something that you weren't necessarily qualified for. But, well, it is though, because I
Yeah.
think a lot of us can relate, especially in this room where we see a job and maybe we think, oh, I have the tools and the skills to do that, but on paper, I don't look like I'm qualified for it. And then you go for it and you end up surprising yourself, but also the team that hires you because you're able to take in these tools that not necessarily just are specific for one industry, but like right to left thinking, you're able to use that and translate it into your life, into your career in many different ways that don't just stay within that one role that you had previously, right?
Right.
That's really cool. Okay.
Yeah. I think the key is, okay, I didn't have the exact experience they were looking for, but I had relevant experience with proven success that says, okay, because I had the success here, I can have success there. And that's something I try and share with my students too, right? because a lot of them, well, particularly the international students, maybe they don't have experience here, or they don't have experience with certain things. I said, yeah, but what have you done which shows that you've got the ability to do this new thing?
Right.
Right?
And I
I don't
know
think
that,
people think about that.
yeah. And I know that you've had the opportunity to hire a lot of different people as well. So I'm sure just yourself having that mindset about looking at someone's resume or CV and looking at what they have done and the skills that they do have and how it can translate into another role is really beneficial as well. I think to know as the candidate that maybe you don't have the exact hard skills, but you have the soft skills that are going to help you translate into that role with success, right?
Yeah, like when I was in that tech group, my HR business partner said that when I became a manager and I had to hire developers, my HR business partner said it was the most difficult role she's ever had to try and fill, because we were looking for people who were technically savvy, but also client friendly, client facing, which is a tricky kind of combination, right? And then too, when I'm interviewing them, yeah, for a lot of them, they don't have the exact hard skill because they've never used the software, much like I hadn't. But
yeah. Okay. Nice. Okay. So I want to move into career planning specific questions, right? With right to left thinking and how we can utilize it when we're trying to plan out where we want to go in our career. So what are some other ways to use right to left thinking in career planning? And do you have an example that you could share with us that would benefit everyone in this room today?
Okay, so the last role I was in with it was within a global operations department at Nielsen, and we used a tool there. And I've shared this with my students and saying, suggest to them that they do this now too. It's called the skill set matrix. So I'll explain how we used it, but then everybody on this call can kind of tweak it to whatever they want it, how they want to use it. But basically. And you can do this in Excel or Google. So for all the roles within my team, in the rows in Excel, we would have a list of all the hard skills you needed, a list of all the soft skills you needed, and then a list of industry knowledge. Then in the columns, we'd have each of the positions. So you'd have senior global client liaison, or global client liaison, senior global client liaison, project manager, and team leader, which I was. Then in the intersecting cells, we would identify the skill level required for each of these. So if you didn't need this skill, it would be a 0. If it was basic understanding, would be a 1. Intermediate ability would be a 2, and master would be a 3. So what I would do with people, particularly when I hired them to start with, is I'd go through and I'd say, okay, rate your ability for all these hard skills, soft skills, and your industry knowledge. And then because it was in Excel, I could do a little formula to calculate the difference. Everywhere that there was a negative, meaning their skill level was below desired, identifies, okay, this is where you need training. So then after team leader, there was a column which showed, okay, here's where you can go to get your training on this. It could be an internal course, an external course. It could be something on the intranet. It could be a workshop or whatever. And then with my team to help them with their career development, I would say, okay, everywhere that you need to do the training, identify me your target date to complete the training, right? And this could be spread out over 3 or 4 months. Didn't have to be done in a couple of weeks. And then I would have regular one-to-one meetings with them. And then once a month, we'd say, okay, pull up this skill set matrix and let's look at where you've completed it. They have another column for completion, right? And how you're tracking with it. So that's just a starting point. But then how people could use it for career development is your global client liaison. They could say, okay, let's look at the senior. So that's a promotion, right? And let me put down where all my skill levels are for a senior. And for some things, a senior skill level will be expected to be higher than a junior. Where are my negatives, right? So wherever my negatives are, okay, this is where I need some training on it. But the key part to this, as I tell my students, and I mentioned this at Conestoga yesterday, is I said, it's your responsibility to drive your career. It's not your manager's job. It's your manager's job to help you and support you in driving your career, but it's up to you. So I said, if you want to be promoted to a senior, have that conversation with your manager. But when you have that conversation, if you've already gone through the process to say, well, here's where I see I need to improve to become a senior, and here's the training that I want to do and when I want to do it, that's a great conversation to have, right? And they'll fully support you. Then, hey, congratulations, you got promoted, you're now a senior. And all of a sudden you say, I'm going to look at the team leader column now. And say, okay, same thing, rate myself. Where do I need to improve? So this is always like the right is the senior, or the right is the team. Sorry, I'll do it. The right is the team leader or the senior, and the left is the position you're in. So it's always, where do I want to go? Where am I now? What's the gap between these two? And what's my plan to fill that gap? Right.
I love that you, sorry to interrupt. I love that you mentioned as well that you are responsible for driving your career. It's not necessarily your manager and everything. Because yeah, I think we can get a little bit comfortable in thinking that, I'll just get the promotion because I deserve it, or they'll think of me, or, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes you do have to advocate for yourself and say, this is where I can really excel in this role, and this is what I can bring to the role in the company, and everything like that. And I think for visual learners and visual people as well, to have a chart where you're able to see, okay, what am I excelling in, and what are some things that I need to improve on myself in order to be qualified to go into a room and say, hey, I could do this promotion, or I could do this role. I think that's really helpful. Yeah, I do. I think that's great.
So, with my students too, I say, well, from the job postings of things you'd be interested in, you'll see what are the hard skills, what are the soft skills, industry knowledge, what are they looking for? And I said, you'll get a sense of the skill level, because they'll have understanding of or knowledge of. So that's pretty low, right? Or they'll have expert in, or proficient in, or master of. So you can look at that and then kind of rate yourself. And what really pleases me, and again, it's part of the intrinsic motivation, is, I've shared this with my students, and then I saw the other day where a student has done that and then saw, well, for a certain role, they're wanting somebody to have a certificate. So over and above her schooling, she's gone out and studied and got this certificate, right?
Oh, I love that.
So it's
That's
great.
great. Yeah. Yeah. And even too, like if you wanted to maybe move into a different career, right? Like if you're looking for a career change, maybe you've been doing something for a while, this is a really great way to start preparing yourself for that transition. And you don't have to jump in the deep end and just go for it, right? You're able to plan and say, okay, I'm going to do this strategically and move forward with that.
Exactly.
That's great. Yeah. Okay. Just looking, I think we're doing good for time. So, with regards to career planning and everything like that, do you have another example of right to left thinking in a project that you designed in your career, in your work?
Okay. So a good example, I guess, is related back again to these category management reports. So I had an instance one time when the Nielsen Retail Services Manager, who was responsible for the Sobeys account, and that was my account too, came to me and said, well, I was just at the regional office and they want you to build this report for them. And she just had written out what they wanted in the report. And I said, yeah, okay, no problem, I can build that. And I said, how do they want the data laid out? Because there's different ways of doing it, right? And she said, well, whatever you think is best. And I said, okay, well, I said, I can do that. I said, but I said, what I would rather do is, I says, I can build it as a draft. I says, but what I'd like to do is, can you take me out to meet your client and we can talk to them, because I want to understand what kind of insights is he trying to get from the report. And I want to set up the layout so that it provides speed to insights. He can quickly see what he's looking for, right? Because with the report, you would have markets like Canada, Quebec, total Sobeys. You would have facts like dollars, units, market share. You would have products like, say, Coke 300 ml can, Pepsi 200 ml bottle, and you'd have periods, January, February, or all of 2023. And in the tool, a little bit like Excel, you'd have to have at least one thing in the rows, one thing in the columns but you could have 3 things in a row, 1 in the columns. You could have 3 things in the columns, 1 in the row. And we even had pages where you could toggle through information. So basically, I could give you 24 different views of the same set of data, right? So she said, okay, sure, I'll take you out. So I went and I built it as a draft, and then I went out to the retailer's office, and I explained that to him, and he kind of explained, okay, this is what he's trying to get out of it. So I said, do you quickly see your answer here? And he goes, no. So then I swapped a couple of the dimensions. I said, can you see it now? No. Did another swap. How about now? No. And then at this point, the retailer started saying, okay, well, if you swap this dimension over here and put this here, on the 8th swap, he went, that's it. I see it, right? I see the insight that I'm looking for, and I can see it right away, right? So now the interesting thing here is that if I hadn't have done that, I could have built the report as per the retail services manager. I could have done the layout in what I thought looked best and sent it off to the client, and the client would have been happy because they say, oh yeah, great. You built what I asked you to build. But by going through this process and having them understand it, I actually increased client satisfaction, because now they saw, well, no, not only are you giving me my insights, but you're giving it to me quickly. You're saving my time. So that was a nice experience.
Nice.
But again, it was, on the right, what are you trying to get at, and get at quickly. And then I take that to the left and start building it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a surefire way to make clients happy, right? Give them what they want, give it to them quickly, and go above and beyond. Because then, you're doing your job and you're doing it so well that they're just impressed by that. So, I mean, I'm very impressed by that. I think as well, it's nice to have a different way of looking at data, because it can be really overwhelming. And if you're looking for just one particular answer and you have to sift through all this data, it's nice to have a system that will show it to you. But also, I think that's helpful for people who maybe don't work with data all the time. And then you're trying to make a point with your data. You're able to showcase it in a way that makes sense for their brain, and for their way of looking at it. I'm going to ask you one more question. And this is for everyone in the room, for our audience today, but also for everyone who's watching it at a later date. How can we use right to left thinking when we're planning our next career move? Maybe you could give 1 or 2 little quick tips that could be beneficial for people moving forward after this session today.
Well, I think maybe what I'll do is just kind of recap or summarize the points that we've talked about so far. So, just keep in mind for your role or your industry, take a look, where's the puck going to, right? And then work back and see how it's evolving, because the world's always changing, technology's always changing, and things like that. So take a look, where's the puck going? Go to where the puck's going to. Create your own skill set matrix exercise. Right? If you're looking for a job, what are the hard skills, soft skills, and industry knowledge? What's the skill level they're looking for? How well do I rate? And then from that, kind of say, well, if I don't have certain experiences, what can I do to now gain those actual experiences or a similar experience, right? When you're thinking about delivering things to customers or designing, it's always having a conversation about, well, what kind of action are you trying to take? What value are you trying to generate out of this? Because, people might buy the same product, but they've got different reasons for buying it, right? So it's understanding, well, what is your reason and how can I best help you? And then I think something that I do personally, and I've shared this with my students, is just, block some time in your calendar. Say even every 6 months, just block 2 hours on a Saturday or on a Sunday to do some self-reflection in this area, right? To say, well, is there something in terms of my career or whatever that I should be having a little right to left thinking exercise right now? And because time passes and all of a sudden, oh my goodness, it's like 2 years have gone by, right? But if you just block off two hours, it's just a nice little reminder to think in this way.
Perfect. Okay. I love that little recap, just so we're all on the same page. And I want to thank you, Marty, for taking the time to not only spend time with us, but also give so freely of your knowledge and your experience through your career. It's really beneficial to hear from people who have spent so long in the industry crafting expertise and then are just willing to share it with younger people who are trying to develop in their career, or any age, really. But Marty, I will let you leave. Any last remarks?
Well, the only thing I'll say is, and I say this in class a lot, I just hope everybody picked up even just one thing that they can use. I'm sure you can use most of it, and you can use it for your lifetime. So it just makes me happy if I can share something that people can use to help them. So, and good luck to everybody.
Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us today. And I look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. And again, Marty, thank you so much for your time.
You're quite welcome.
Have a good day. Bye,
You too.
guys.